If somebody offered you money to hurt somebody, would you do it? You probably wouldn't, right? That's what you think, because you're actually a piece of shit. Huh? I'm sorry, you're not a piece of shit. I love you. The person I'm talking to right now, you, not a piece of shit. But research shows that the majority of people kind of are. At least that's what the research of a man named Stanley Milgram shows. In the 60s, he shocked the world with a psychological experiment that is taught around the world in psych classes to this day. The experiment is pretty simple. For each trial, he brought in 2 actors and just a regular person off the street. Let's call this regular person Steve. Steve thought he was participating in an experiment on pain and how pain affects learning, and he had no idea that the other people were actors. So Steve was asked to sit in a chair and ask the actors some questions, and each time the actor got a question wrong, Steve had to administer an electric shock.
That's incorrect, so there'll be 120 volts.
So it starts at 15 volts, and 15 volts is painful, but it's not going to kill you. But again, for each question the actor gets wrong, the intensity of the shock goes up.
That's wrong. 225 volts.
And at the very end of the board, the strongest volt that Steve thought he was administering was 450 volts. A 450 volt shock is very dangerous and can easily kill someone. Now, as the experiment went on and the actors would get questions wrong and the shocks would get more and more intense, the actors would start yelling from the other room, pleading for the experiment to stop.
You're gonna get a shock, 180 volts.
I can't stand the pain. Let me out of here.
Can't stand it. I'm not gonna kill that man, eh?
Now, once again, this was all a ruse. The real experiment was, would this random person off the street, the everyday Joe, the everyday man, would this random everyday person be willing to hurt and potentially kill somebody just because somebody in a lab coat told them to?
That's wrong, mate. 300 volts.
Before this experiment, they asked a bunch of industry experts what they thought the results of the study were, and they all pontificated and thought that only 0.1%, if that, would be sociopathic enough to kill somebody just because they were asked to. But the truth shocked the world. They found that 2/3 of participants went the whole way, thinking they killed someone, continuing to administer shocks even after the actor stopped responding. Now, there were some people that reluctantly stopped, but they were the minority.
Please continue.
345 volts, if you're still with me. I'm sorry. I can't do this, honestly. Can we stop this experiment? Because I can't do this.
This study was replicated many times with hundreds of participants and took many forms. And the major conclusion always comes back to this idea of conformity. Most of us think we're moral people who would do no wrong and can hurt nobody, but the truth is, most of us aren't driven by morals. Most of us are driven by a desire to conform. Solomon Asch discovered something similar in his experiments in the 1950s. People were asked to match the length of a line on one card with one of 3 lines on another card. A pretty simple task, but planted among the participants were actors who intentionally chose the wrong answers. The real test was whether the lone true participant, the Steve of this experiment, would conform to the group's clearly wrong choice. And surprisingly, a significant number did.
Number 3? Number 3. Number 3.
Wow. 75% of people picked an answer that they knew was wrong just because everybody else did. Again, comes back to this idea of conformity. Is this why so many people are susceptible to stupid political movements? Or is this why our ideologies are so easily divided by social media algorithms? Is this why people stand so convinced that their worldview is the only one that's good, despite the diversity of cultures and ways of life all over the world?